All I'm hearing these days is that hunters are the worst class for PvE. Sure, we don't have the burst damage of Thunder Crash or the healing and support of Well of Radiance, but what we do have is the easiest top tier DPS of any class. We can do it at range with linear fusion rifles or in melee with swords, and if you have been watching the footage behind me, you can see me absolutely melting Captain Avarok solo. Now let me show you how to make your hunter top the DPS of your group or even solo. For a subclass, you want Revenant with Glacial Grenades, Shatter Dive, Grim Harvest, Whisper of Durance, Whisper of Impetus, Whisper of Conduction, and Whisper of Rhyme. For armor, you can either use Star Eater Scales, Mask of Baccharis, Aeon Swift, or 6 Coyote. For mods, we have Supreme Wellmaker, Font of Might, Elemental Time Dilation, or Elemental Shards, Elemental Charge, or Taking Charge, or Font of Might, High Energy Fire, or Protective Light, or Font of Might, Particle Deconstruction, or Passive Guard, Thermoplastic Blooming, and Recuperation if you're using Star Eater Scales, and other useful mods here are Grenade Kickstart, Utility Kickstart, Resists, and Scavengers. Just make a note that some of these mods are for Season 15 only, but if they do return, you can once again throw them back into this build. Armor stat priority should be Recovery to Tier 10, then Strength greater than or equal to Discipline, greater than Intellect, and Mobility greater than or equal to Resilience. For weapons, you want a Reed's Regret with Triple Tap and Vorpal or Firing Line, a Zephyr with Whirlwind Blade, a Rapid Fire Fusion Rifle, an Eyes Luna with Headstone, and other weapons can easily be filled as needed. The key here is stasis weapons, and I have a dim loadout for all of this in the description below. And for some general tips, first of all, this is a DPS build, not a solo survivability build, not a crowd control build. This is meant solely to do big damage on bosses. You want to cast your super at the start or right before damage, grab a stasis well, and DPS away. Use your charged melee immediately after the last shot to reload the magazine. This is range based on how quickly it reloads, but try and be around 20 meters if you can. Use Marksman's Dodge when out of charged melees, and the exotic armor is not too important to this build. Star Eater Scales only adds about 5.5% total damage. Baccharis can give a small bump with slow targets, but has a longer recharge and animation time. Aeons can add some support to your teammates, and 6 Coyote just gives you another Marksman's Dodge. You can even just use Stompies if you'd like to. Use Elemental Charge and High Energy Fire when solo. Use Taking Charge and Protective Light in Master and High-End content, and use the 2 additional Fonts of Might mods in regular raids and dungeons. For this season, use Particle Deconstruction with Linears and Passive Guard with Swords. And that is all you need to start running with this build. If you've liked this so far, please consider dropping a like and subscribing, but now I will go more in depth on the viability of the build compared to others. I tested this against some other loadouts that try and take advantage of a solo DPS setup, giving some pros and cons of each as well. I assume High Energy Fire and Particle Deconstruction for each loadout. Starting with this build, it did 36k DPS on Kali. It requires your super to be ready and melees or dodges to reload faster. Applies slow and freeze onto the boss and can stagger them a lot easier. There are no adds required for the setup, and it can work well at range and melee. Now for the baseline loadout of Thunder Crash with a Cartesian and Reed's Regret, it did 30.6k DPS on Kali, and the only con is that you need to reposition after a Thunder Crash. Next I did a Nova Bomb plus Font of Might plus Zealots and Threaded Needle. This did 31.2k DPS on Kali, and it requires a red bar for a melee or grenade kill to set up Font of Might. Then I did a Celestial Nighthawk plus Font of Might plus Cartesian plus Sleeper. This did 31.8k DPS on Kali, and once again it just requires a red bar for a melee or grenade kill to set up on a might. So if you can't save enemies before the start of DPS, these past 2 setups will not perform nearly as well. And then I just want to go over 1-2 punch builds. These can achieve some of the highest DPS numbers in the game, especially Mini Hammer Titan. However, it requires stacking kills preemptively before the damage phase to stack Roaring Flames or Combination Blow. Boss stomps can easily move move you out of position, Synthoceps requires you to be surrounded by 3 or more enemies. They can be rather difficult to set up. Fire's Handshake was nerfed and only amounts to about 33.8k DPS at the current moment, but Mini Hammer Titan can one-phase both Grasp of Avarice bosses when set up properly. Personally, I would take this loadout into regular dungeons and raids, as well as Gambit. It really does work anywhere you'd like it to, but you have to be cautious in higher level content such as Master Ball of Glass and Grasp of Avarice, where not having Protective Light can make you really squishy. But if you have a well in your group, you can easily just swap off of high energy fire for Protective Light and replace Elemental Charge with Taking Charge if your group isn't generating elemental wells consistently. Thanks again for watching this far. If you have, Revenant really takes advantage of on-demand elemental wells with a one and done super to maximize their DPS. Even if it can be overkill, it is the edge hunters have this season. This also got me to test other DPS builds that you can expect in the next couple weeks, and it will be interesting to see how all this changes in Witch Queen. Until next time, stay legendary.